Leaders in Barbados joined those from around the world today in paying further tribute to late South African President and anti-apartheid icon Nelson Mandela, who passed away last Thursday. In a memorial service held on this International Human Rights Day in Johannesburg, presidents, prime ministers, royals and celebrities joined tens of thousands of South Africans in expressing their respect for and admiration of the man seen as a global symbol of reconciliation.
You really get a sense that we are a part of history, you know, the tens of thousands of people here and everybody else in this country who's obviously sat down in front of a television set or sat next to a radio if they're in a rural area, and they've just quietly tried to contemplate what Mandela means to them. And over again we've heard people say, what President Zuma is saying now, he was one of a kind, and everybody seems to have had some sort of Mandela moment when he touched lives. So this has been personal, at the same time political.
Here in Barbados, today's sitting of Parliament focused on Mr. Mandela, led by Prime Minister Fundell Stewart, who said the country joins South Africa in sharing the pain of the death of the anti-apartheid fighter. Mr. Stewart said Barbados has a history of condemning the apartheid system in South Africa that imprisoned Mr. Mandela for 27 years, noting that Mr. Mandela helped to rebuild a society that was fractured by the policy.
Barbados joins with the people of South Africa in thanking God for his life. Barbados shares with South Africa the grief and the sense of loss which that country is inevitably and understandably experiencing at this time. Barbados shares with South Africa the sense of triumph that even though for a night darkness reigned in the life of Mandela, light eventually came, and that was a light he was prepared to share with the world.
Mr. Stewart said Mr. Mandela made a huge difference to the world.
It is people like Nelson Mandela that recommend themselves to us who believe that ultimately there is an intrinsic viability about truth and justice and right. About those of us who believe that lives have a shelf life, a limited shelf life as well, but that ultimately truth and justice and right will assert themselves, and that lies and injustice and untruth will be routed and put to flight. And that is the kind of hope that the life of Nelson Mandela has radiated for all the world.
Minister of Social Care Steve Blackett believes Mr. Mandela had the biggest impact on mankind since Jesus Christ.
Now, Nelson Mandela, who, to my mind, will be immortalized as truly an outstanding and iconic figure that was led to us for 95 years, 95 long years, and transcends all that represents spite, hatred, and malice.
Housing Minister Dennis Kelman says the late South African president taught us to love more than anything else in his life.
There is no doubt that this man has made a difference in the life of all of us, whether we are black, white, and he has taught us how to unite, and he has taught us not to be revengeful. And that's the most important thing. And he has also taught us that country comes first, and that even though you have been placed in prison for all of these years, since the 1960s up to 1994 or so, that you do not spend time to destroy your country, but you spend time to see how you can build your country.
In her tribute, opposition leader Mia Mottley said there are many lessons from Mr. Mandela's life that apply to people in public office, but more importantly, to the average man. She told the House, although Mr. Mandela was ailing for some time, his death still caused a great deal of pain and sorrow across the world. This, she says, is because Mr. Mandela inspired human beings to want to be better.
It is because in all that he did, Nelson Mandela most of all inspired the better angels of our nature and inspired in us a belief that first and foremost, as human beings, we can seek always to achieve better. And that the road that we ought to take should not be the one that comes easiest in terms of what our natural emotions may inspire in us as human beings, but the one that will allow us always to see the big picture and to focus on what lies before us rather than to be imprisoned by that which we have come through.
And City MP Jeffrey Bostick has described the late South African leader as a giant of a man who was selfless and sacrificed much for his people and his country.
Nelson Mandela for me was the quintessential leader, the very embodiment of all of those qualities which I've been taught over the years in my previous career that one should have if one wanted to be a good leader. I'm speaking about selflessness and personal sacrifice.
And late this evening in the Committee Room of Parliament, the 30 elected members of the lower house signed a condolence book honouring the late South African President Nelson Mandela. The first to do so was Prime Minister Fundell Stewart, who spent a few moments as he acknowledged the life of the anti-apartheid freedom fighter. He was followed by Opposition Leader Mia Mottley, Speaker of the House Michael Carrington, Housing Minister Dennis Kelman, Tourism Minister Richard Seeley, Transport Minister John Boyce, former Prime Minister Owen Arthur, and Culture Minister Stephen Lashley. Local tourism officials are rolling out a new initiative aimed at sustaining tourist arrivals for the long haul. It hinges on the newly released Barbados Tourism Travel Guide app. Shane Seeley has the story.
One of the concerning things about the average Barbadian visitor is the fact that we tend to appeal to an older demographic.
That's a concern the Barbados Tourism Travel Guide app is designed to address. It's aimed at younger, more technologically savvy tourists and is available free for mobile devices including iPhones and Androids. Tourism Minister Richard Seeley says it's a very strategic move.
When you couple that with the high rate of repeat visitorship that we enjoy, I think we have to embrace initiatives like this, because if you want a future for tourism and you have an older demographic and a high rate of repeat visitors, you understand that cocktail is one that could be potentially deadly for the industry.
Tourism Minister Richard Seeley there telling us why the Barbados Official Travel Guide app is so critical to the future success of the tourism product and our tourism offerings here. Now I have Kai Husbands, the creator of the application. Kai, I want you to tell us, how will this help Barbados and the tourism ministry in particular to market the island to the world?
There's no secret that Barbados is, let's say, clientele is somewhat aging, and given how new mobile is, and given the fact that mobile is increasing so rapidly, the 18 to 34 segment use a mobile device more than a computer or a laptop or a desktop or a laptop. So mobile is the only way that we're going to start to engage with that younger demographic.
So our efforts to market Barbados through the internet and via social media really working? I put the question to these German tourists.
Researching in the internet, and then we were looking for hotels which would be interesting to us. So the Radisson was very interesting to us by reviews on TripAdvisor. And also, since I'm working for Air Berlin, it was convenient to travel from Berlin directly to Miami and go on with American Airlines then.
And what makes Barbados so special?
The people, you are the differentiator here. We've been to many, many islands and places before in our career, in work-related, vacation, but your people here are making the difference.
Shane Seeley, CBC News.
Thanks, Shane. We'll call it the sandals effect. The Barbados Tourism Authority is reporting that the international hotel brand is helping in a big way to attract airlift to the island. BTA Chairman Adrian Elcock has revealed some of the details of a plan which has seen Sandals Barbados helping to expand airlift to this country from a major source market.
Sandals has an extremely powerful pull for airlift, and we are beginning to see the benefits of that in our discussions already. And I got some very good news last night on a potential opportunity that will be happening, and it's solely because of the influence of the Sandals brand, and it will see an expansion of the airlift out of one of our markets.
As local officials mark the start of Tourism Week here in Barbados, there's also news about the BTA's efforts to shore up airlift coming out of JFK International in New York. Mr. Elcock says the authority is considering 3 proposals at present to fill a shortfall of about 20,000 seats coming to Barbados. One is a charter out of JFK in a joint arrangement with Trinidad and Tobago. The second option is a JFK to Bridgetown to Port of Spain route serviced by Caribbean Airlines. And then there's ongoing discussions with Delta Airways.
We will have some short-term dislocation with the American Airlines pullout on January 19th out of JFK. But we have been very happy that our partner JetBlue have added about 30,000 seats, and we've been able to reduce our seat loss from the 50,000 seats that we were expected to be down. We are expecting a big decline in that number through the support of JetBlue, then Cal. And then strategically, we are going to work on the Delta and hopefully make an announcement in short order on that.
With Christmas just over 2 weeks away, farmers in Barbados are not anticipating a great demand for produce this Yuletide season. Head of the Barbados Agricultural Society, James Paul, says it's because of the current economic downturn. Speaking to the CBC about the BAS expectations this year, Mr. Paul said members are prepared and will meet all requests for meats and vegetables.
Farmers should not have a chance trying to produce the quantity and types of vegetables that will be in demand on the part of consumers. So at this stage, we don't foresee any problem of saying that we have an abundance of eggs that are indicated on the market, and the poultry sector is doing very well in that regard. And vegetable farmers themselves should be able to meet any demands for produce that consumers may have at Christmas. I think that this Christmas should prove to be one where consumers should not have to complain about the lack of adequacy of local agricultural produce.
Well, despite the information and education that pervades society regarding the importance of the cultural industries in Barbados, there still remains a shortage of confidence in the sector. That's the position of the Copyright Society of Composers, Authors and Publishers Incorporated. Chief Executive Officer Erica Smith believes this is revealed constantly through the quantity of financial support being offered to cultural practitioners. She says creative talents in Barbados need the opportunity to constantly develop and expand their cultural creativity. Ms. Smith made the comment today during the official launch of the Guardians of Music Sing-a-Tune competition for school sports at the Baobab Towers in Warrens.
We believe that this is something everybody has the capacity for. It may be expressed in different ways, but it is inherent in all of us. Unfortunately, when we speak about creativity, particularly in terms of the development of the cultural industries, we've had very narrow focus, consciously or otherwise, of what creativity means. And it's something that we have tended to associate almost exclusively with the arts.